brain. Welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk. Come be at peace with me. Ask the Paul, where we rise and don't fall.
Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my frequency. Enter at your own risk.
Hey.
Today, I have a special guest with me. Let me get my glasses off so I can read this bio really quickly. Madilynn Beck. She is an entertainment veteran, a paused psychotherapist. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And the founder of The Better Spot is fostering a culture of sustainable wellness through a secure platform for the practitioner community. So we'll definitely talk a bit more about that because it's definitely related. Madilynn, welcome back to Baxter's Buzz. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. Super pumped to be back.
Well, yes, the thing about us is we could do 10, I think we could do 10 podcasts in 10 days and have 10 different topics.
Yep.
And they all would be fire.
Yeah.
So I always appreciate our conversation on and off camera. As I was looking at your most recent bio, I hadn't realized that you had sort of paused around the psychotherapy. So it's May. We are talking about Mental Health Awareness Month, the importance of mental health, and whatever that looks like to different people, right? And so we were talking off air a bit about, okay, psychotherapy versus like counseling versus like tell me about your time as a psychotherapist and then sort of how that fits in sort of the lexicon of all of like the mental health sort of practitioners.
Yeah. So MFT, marriage and family therapist. So there's whenever you have folks that are within the mental health space, right? Just like people who are essentially in any industry, there's always going to be specialties within that industry, right? You're not just going to say, I'm going to see a doctor or I'm going out to eat. It's like, what are you going to eat? Or what type of doctor are you going to see, right? And so there are nuances within the academic background, licensure and regulation, how we approach the work that we do, the methods, modalities that we use. So I was most drawn to being a marriage and family therapist because I'm just infinitely curious about human relationships. Primarily, those that are personal, familial, romantic relationships. There's social workers, there's counselors, there's psychologists, psychiatrists, those are doctors, there's doctors of philosophy. So we're all out here. I know I missed some. I know some folks are going to come for me. There's clinical counselors. There's a bunch of acronyms. The letters are everywhere. But yes, myself, associate MFT, and I stopped practicing. Like you said, I took a pause. I just actually did a panel for Clinician Fest 2023. That was last week, and it was phenomenal. So clinicians hit it up next year for all backgrounds of clinical mental health and practice. But I think a large represented group were the social workers. Social workers stand up. They came out strong in that conference this year. But I said a phrase that like resonated with folks because it was blowing up in the chat. And it was like, sometimes, instead of falling out, you just need to fall back. So I call myself a psychotherapist on pause because a pause was necessary in order for me to continue doing the work. I don't want to step out of the field, but I got to press pause for a minute to get some things together. So that's where I'm at.
Well, you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder. The work is super important to you, and we'll talk a bit about that just in general, right? But whenever we would connect or trying to figure out time to connect, it was my schedule versus your schedule, and a lot of your schedule between pitch meetings for your company was your clients that you had to see, right? So both things require like full-time attention. So yeah, again, we'll talk a minute more about that. I want to talk about the Clinician Fest, but I wanted to say this. You may not even remember. December 7th, that's not when we talked, but that's the day that I was doing some writing. I was kind of working on, I've been sort of outlining and brainstorming what my next writing project would be. And I was sitting here, I had a day off, and I was just writing, and I was writing some things that I had never written before, like things that I didn't realize was like thoughts, if
Love
that makes
that.
sense.
Yeah.
And it just started to kind of like pour out of me. And then I started again, not sure why that day was a day, but it was like I was like connecting dots between, well, maybe that's the way, maybe I'm this way because of this thing that happened to me. And I don't spend a lot of time in the past in general, just because, in my opinion, for years it was like a waste of time. It was like I had too much in front of me, right? And
Sure.
I probably, obviously subconsciously didn't want to spend a lot of time there because of things that just weren't worth
Yeah.
remembering, in my opinion. So as I was like writing these things and reminiscing about, things that happened 30 years ago, I'm like, man, maybe I'm this way because, and I said, so I was typing on one computer. I was listening to an interview, and this gentleman was talking about his therapist. I said, okay, God, all right, fine. There's
Ding,
something
ding,
going
ding, ding,
on.
ding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like God, like, okay, I don't know what else I gotta tell you,
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, I gotta find someone. So I reached out, I started to do a little research, and then eventually later that month, you and I connected, and I hadn't heard back from anyone. I had heard back from one person. It wasn't a great fit through our initial conversation. And you said, basically do this, do this. You're like, it's holiday season, but if you haven't heard from anyone by like X amount time in January, like reach back out and I'll help you, right? So thank you
Yeah.
for, I think you even congratulated me for like even like making the attempt, right? And just
Mm-hmm.
you wanting to try to assist where you could. I appreciated that. And I feel like I always get a little therapy just talking to you. Anyway, so thank you for your support and just
Of course.
your sort of empathy. That was something that I could identify like right away. Um, so I've been seeing a therapist since January. I could
Amazing.
not be happier. Shortly after we record, I will be having a session today, but I wanted to just kind of paint that picture. Like, you're an advocate, truly.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how long you've been in the profession and what sort of drew you to it to begin with.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, that question within itself is a whole podcast, but I'll be as succinct as possible. Um, I mean, like I said, I've always been just super curious about relationships. And so I actually said in my interview for my undergrad at NYU when I was interviewing and auditioning for the drama school, I remember calling myself a conduit of stories, right? Like a receptacle of stories. I love them. I'm fascinated by them, whether they're true or fantasy. I think the ability to connect is something that supersedes every division that we'll ever have as humans, period, in the story, right? Even if you tell a story and you don't understand the language, you can still feel the commonalities between that. So I've always had that love and dedication just through storytelling, whether I'm telling it or listening to it. But I mean, real talk, I, went through a significant trauma in 2017, and finding care was wild. Finding care was wild. it wasn't like oh, let me just hop on ZocDoc or insert any other directory to find somebody, even directories that were niched, even directories that were like, you're a Black woman, here's a directory for Black women. Like even those directories, it is still a commitment and a process because you have to meet this human. In 2017, we were still meeting people in person, but a lot of consultations were via phone. So there's an energy and a connectivity that's necessary in order for you to know that you're going to have effective therapy because it requires you to be vulnerable. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You can't walk into a space and just be like, oh, I really don't click with this person, but let me just spend a grip of money in an hour every week, 50 minutes every week with this person, telling them what's going down. So going through that process was exhausting. And I also, during that time, started recognizing that like, I don't just need mental health support, mental or emotional support. And that was also when I really like recommitted a love to integrative care. I was like, I need mind, body, spirit support. I need the whole situation. So as I started that therapy myself, going through trauma therapy, first starting at crisis and then getting into just traditional treatment and process therapy, I was like, I want to see what this is about. I want to maybe look at it from an academic lens and see what's going on. And then that was pulling a string on a damn sweater. That was a whole like the system and who wrote the books and how the information was, substantiated and what's considered something that's like, empirical and supported. And it just made me realize a lot of things. Like being a student taught me things that it wasn't supposed to teach me. Right? Like I was learning how to be a clinician, but at the same time, I was learning why the system didn't work.
Well, you came in not as a traditional student as far as like your age, right?
Right.
You'd already been in school, already had degrees,
Yep.
right? And a woman, like
Mm-hmm.
a full grown woman, with experiences in the whole nine, right? So you had a different perspective. You had a more mature perspective, and plus just the way you're wired. Yeah, I can imagine you seeing some things that's been there, but just seeing it differently than a lot of other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, definitely that's a huge key element. Yeah. I went to start my journey as an MFT after already having a BFA, after already having an MED. So I already had 2 degrees and, a decade of education underneath my belt. And it just made sense for me to go. I bet everybody on here is like, how much academic debt do you have? But like, I was like, I want to do this thing and I want to do it right. So in order for me to do it right, these are the channels that I have to go through, right? And it was a very different experience. I think it would have been super different if I was like 18.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
So,
you, in my opinion, you still would have seen some things differently than most, but no, the experience that you had, the life experience and the educational experience, I think, and then this whole entertainment brain that you have, right, and those
yeah.
experiences. I mean, that probably send most people out west to therapy, anywhere near Hollywood, right? It's just trying to get in that game and
Yeah.
being a part of that game, and a lot of folks being, chewed up and spit out and all that.
But you know what? I mean, I used to think that. I used to think heavily that like folks that are in entertainment, actors, performers, whatever they may be, whatever type of art, I used to think a lot of the time that it took like a specific type of person or that person went through a specific, mental anguish or like journey. Having been on both sides, like for real, it's anyone that has a desire and resilience but doesn't have a healthy relationship with that, doesn't recognize like these are the things within my power, these are the things that are not within my power, let's deal with reality, right? Like I'm sure you've heard of the phrase like toxic positivity. There's a space around that, right, where you start to lose sight of why you fell in love with something. because that's just what our society does to us very often, right? We operate in a scarcity mindset. It doesn't function properly if we're not constantly thinking more. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. So when you have actors or performers that are tying their worth to something that they have no control over, all they can do is put in the work. Whether or not the casting director is going to validate them by giving them the role, they have no control over that. And that's life. That's everybody.
I'm in sales. That's me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You've been out meeting with donors and piecing that together. You know, done that.
Investors. I wish I was getting donations, but yes.
Did I say donors?
You did.
Investors.
I'm like, they're not giving it to me for free.
Look, I'm in the non-profit brain. You're like, no,
Nope.
profit. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's call them but again, right? And I'll just speak from my own experiences, like literally every day, right? Yeah, sometimes it feels like if the result, the desired result or the desired outcome wasn't attained, then you could kind of feel like, well, I did all this work for for nothing, right? I had a meeting very recently, and I was super fired up about it. And it was at the end of the week, and I had so much going on during like earlier that week that I didn't have time. And then once it was that morning, I was able to like finalize our presentation. I had to, bringing my team out, and I got so excited because I'm so grateful. We do all this hard work to get an opportunity to pitch. And these things don't grow on trees. These opportunities don't grow on trees.
Especially not in this economy. Nope.
But we can't only tie it to the outcome. We need to tie it to the effort that we put in, the preparation that we put in, the fun that we had. What I mean, there's a adrenaline that you have after presenting.
Oh yeah.
And thinking about this opportunity, right? And everybody on the team was buzzing. And one of my team members, she was chatting me up. We hadn't even gotten in the car. We were outside of the building of this company, and she's just chatting me up. But we both were kind of just like
that
still
energy
buzzing, right? And then I got texts from other colleagues and calls. How do you think it went? I thought this, and that's always a really good feeling that people enjoyed their time with you, because I'm the curator and the conductor of these meetings. Like I have the responsibility to say, okay, I have a great team, and they say, okay, well let's see, and now I have to pull folks together, tell them why they should be excited about taking time out of their day. Right. And so it's like, but when people give me positive feedback, man, I had a great time. That was fun. Yes, it's business, but it's not all business. It's the prep, it's the performance, it's the feeling that you feel inside of a room where you feel like these folks will make great partners.
It's
and
when
I
you
want
make
to be
that
a
connection.
part of that.
Yeah, it's all about, again, right? Storytelling and relationships. It's when you make that connection, when the story that you have, when your why, when your purpose connects to someone else, and it's like bing, it's all worth it. Then you're like, this is why I do what I do.
And then you still want the ultimate opportunity to partner, to get hired, but you also, there's a satisfaction in my book, like, if I'm going to try to pretend to be what I think you want, and I don't get the business anyway,
right?
I'm looking crazy, right? Because I'm like,
right.
I didn't lie this whole thing, and I didn't guessed
and didn't get it anyway,
and didn't get it anyway, and I wasn't even myself. The success that I've experienced, once I accepted who I was and brought that with, and the more I bring myself into these meetings, the better I feel and the more successful I've been.
Yeah. That's it. That's the true one. And that's also, it's sustainable. it's not sustainable to keep trying to pretend you're somebody you're not. You know what I mean? So,
No. Well, then you get the business, pretending to be someone else, and then what? No.
well, now you're doing it forever, forever,
Yes.
ever.
Yes. Yeah. Which it's a lose-lose
Yeah.
proposition. But took me a while to kind of identify the right industry, that and then ultimately let's drill down. What is it about this industry? How can the things that you are passionate about, how does it relate to this industry and this role?
Hmm.
And then when you can identify with that, it helps bring clarity to everything else, right?
Hmm.
So I'm in the business of helping people and helping them take all this noise and help simplify it and say, okay, let's figure this thing out together,
Yeah.
right? And that's what it's about. It's not about how many insurance terms I can rattle off.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
can have somebody else for that. I want to be in the thick of things with them, trying to figure out strategically what's our mindset going for 2024 and how do we get there?
Yeah. I mean, you're a
How do we
long-term
partner?
partner. You're looking
Hmm.
for, yeah, long-term lifetime partnership for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, the better spot. Tell me how that idea was born and walk me through kind of some of the pieces. I know a little bit about, but some of the where it originated, kind of some of the ups and downs, and kind of where you all are at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, so the better spot was born of the trauma that I went into therapy for, right? Like going through that experience as a client, trying to find a practitioner that I could vibe with, that felt good, that I could afford, that I could get to easily, that had space for me, that didn't have a 90-day wait list, like all those different things, right? It's definitely an art. It's not a science as much as the algorithms try to make it a science. It's not.
Yeah.
And going through that process, and then I use like I say a lot of times like a therapist in therapy, right? Because most therapists are in therapy because we know how effective it is, first of all. But yeah, I came to the better spot because I was just, as I was going through school, my third degree, I'm looking at the system and I'm like, the medical industrial complex is jacked up. Like, what? Wait, I have to do what? And then if I do, but then I have, and I'm like putting together the pieces and taking all these courses and then also I had the beauty of having access, right? I had access to my supervisory group. I had access to, professors that had been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. I was also in therapy, so I had that element to be able to ask my own practitioner. And then I just started like bouncing things off based on all the problems that they were experiencing, right? Not having a secure space to exist in. The majority of practitioners got to meet each other because they were all on Facebook. And I'm like, okay, well then how do you have like a private conversation? Oh, well, our group is private. Yeah, your group is private, but Facebook owns that information. So how private is it if Facebook got it, right? And then they're like, oh, well, and then people saying things on Twitter and being doxxed, right? Because you can't be a human and a practitioner at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then I started seeing all these things and I was like, well, there's got to be a solution for it. So I started looking for the solution and I couldn't find it. And the thing that really set it off was there was a colleague of mine who, you know, people just didn't like who she was as a person, how she existed in the world. And they just started creating fake reviews about her private practice. What? Had never seen her, and just, I mean, that's how it is. So I started seeing a lot of different problems and I couldn't find the solution. And then I was just like, let me just make it. Let me just create it.
Let me create a better spot.
Let me create a better spot. Yeah.
I don't want to tackle that whole fake review thing. We don't have time. That's ridiculous.
It's wild. It's wild. Yeah.
And so that's the premise. But tell me, in theory, what did you have in mind for the better spot? Like, you want to create an environment, but talk about it. Tell
Yeah,
me
I
what you
mean,
envision.
so, what the better spot is it's, first of all, it's dual industry, which I think is huge. If it wasn't the first thing that I said, I should have bad founder, but it's dual industry. So it is online and it is in person, because health and wellness doesn't just exist in one of those spaces, right? In order for it to be holistic, in order for it to be a whole human solution, the healing has to go where we are. So you have the virtual space that is for the practitioners. There's an element of being able to have referrals. So a practitioner that you're seeing, so say for instance, you're a therapist, right, that you're going to see in a little bit, say that they're on the better spot, and say that you've been talking about whatever. When you get upset, and this is, none of this is real. So anybody watching this, I am not Baxter's therapist. I am not his consultant. This is for entertainment and not ethically against anything. But so say you're seeing your therapist and your therapist is like, you manifest your sadness physically. I see your shoulders start to rise when you talk about this, right? Pain body, it lives within I really want you to go see an acupuncturist. So what happens in today is just your therapist says you go see an acupuncturist. You say, cool. You leave your therapist off. Maybe you go on Google. Maybe you go to ZocDoc, whatever. Your therapist has no idea who you're seeing. Your therapist cannot vouch for that person. Your therapist has never met that person, and they just hope that you get the help that you need. Okay. Whereas in the better spot, because we do have, number one, a secured and verified community, everyone gets checked, their licensures and everything before they can even create a profile to get onto the app. Then it's all referral network. So if your therapist is on the better spot, they can say, I really think you should see an acupuncturist. I'm going to send you somebody. They send you a link. It has however many acupuncturists that they personally are in community with, that they know, that they could vouch for, right? You've already behind the scenes kind of worked out the HIPAA compliance and the ethics behind releasing information between those practitioners. So you don't have to sign additional documents and do the DocuSign and the back and forth and the woo woo woo. And then you just get to look at people's profiles and be like, let's check this person out. Approve. You talk to them. I'm not vibing. Swipe. Next one. You talk to them. Okay, bet this is the person. Schedule, and then here we are. And that's what you can do for 12 modalities of wellness, right? 12 different forms of wellness. You can do that on the profile. And then the hub is literally just an extension of that. So the hub works in tandem and inverse. So say, for instance, you don't have a therapist yet, or you don't have an acupuncturist yet, and you're looking for one, you could walk into a hub. I need to see a mental health therapist. Is there anyone who's available today? Yes, we have dozens available today. What are you looking for? Great. Boom, 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 boom. Here's my filter. This is what I'm looking for. We have 3 people that fit what you're looking for that are available today within the next however many hours based on when you go in. Click, make an appointment, have a consultation, and there you go. So it's exciting. And it's awesome. And I'm super stoked about it.
That makes so much sense, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Madilynn, why was it important for you to put this together?
I mean, because the math ain't mathing, because what we're doing now isn't working. And we have clear proof that it's daily, minute by minute. Go online right now. I'll be able to find a dozen reasons, if not more, depending on how long you give me, right? To find why what's happening right now is not working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If one more health or wellness app gets flagged by the FDA or forced to pause from a federal judge because of unethical practices, deregulation. I mean, yes. So it's not working. Our practitioners are not well. And if they are not well, there is no wellness. So.
No, for sure. For sure. So, you've met with and pitched to a number of potential investors, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There were some that wasn't good fit. There were some that wanted to learn a little bit more. and ultimately decided, we're gonna pass. That they're I know you felt like, and again, another podcast, right? That there were times where you felt like, I don't think that they're really understanding this. They're saying no, but they don't even really understand.
Right. It's not
Maybe
hidden.
because of who I am or who they perceive me to be.
Hmm.
Again, another podcast.
Hmm.
But ultimately, you got some traction. Tell me where you are now, where things stand with the Better Spot, and sort of like what's next for the end of this year, going into the next year, and all
Yeah.
that.
Um, so interestingly enough, right? Look how I'm about to take us full circle here. So, my journey with investment has been very similar to what I said at the beginning of the podcast, right? And in the very beginning, I was so focused on what I didn't have control over. I was putting all my time and effort into that versus looking at what I did have control over. So, when you are attempting to get VC dollars in today's economy, you can do as much as you can to get you in the door. But just like you were saying, once you're in the door, there's only so much more that you can do. They have to be industry aligned with you. They have to have the funds. I mean, I've had meetings with folks where I found out, through the grapevine, they haven't even closed their own fund yet. They don't even have money to give me. They're just taking meetings to see what's up. You know what I mean? So there's so many different things. I got to a point where I was like, okay, if VC money is for me, then I have to do more work in finding the right VC and then be relentless with them instead of spreading myself so thin, instead of playing the numbers game of whoever's going to give me. No, these are the folks that I want to rock with. Let me get at tables with them and figure out what do I need to do to get the check from you, because I want, like you said, a long-term partnership with these folks, right? And then additionally, angels. I wasn't reaching out to angels because, startup culture a lot of times is super toxic and folks are like VC, 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 VC because it's sexy and Miami VC week and woo, woo, woo. And it's like,
What's
there are people.
VC for people, everybody? This a little.
Sure. Venture capital. So venture capital are very large sums of money from a conglomerate or a group of people that all invest into an entity, right? They give their money to the entity. The entity has a deciding board on who they're going to invest in based on what their specialty is. So that's VC. And I decided to pivot from VC, at least from kind of the spray of what I was previously doing, and really dig into angel investments. So angel investments are accredited investors, but individuals or smaller individual groups that write much smaller checks, but have a much larger social impact because they're like, I'm investing in you, the human. I want you, the human, to do amazing things. If this thing doesn't work out, I know that you will because of your tenacity. And I really vibe with that.
Yeah.
That really makes me happy and really aligns with where we're going with the ethos of the Better Spot. So, and then the other thing was, a lot of people, I'm going to say this, people are going to get upset. I've been looking at debt financing. I know that everyone's like, don't go into debt, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. At the end of the day, having a physical space is half of our model. It's a huge contributing factor to what we do. And I'm not talking about buying real estate. So tech investors, if you're listening, don't freak out because they're like, risk averse, right? But I need to rent one. And with everyone going remote, interestingly enough, there's a flood of available space in the market. So, so thinking about how I can just do that myself. And as I'm getting, my customers, my experts in from the app portion, do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Like we had conversations where you had met with VCs, and yeah, when you're talking about what success looks like and who gets this money in this space, it's not Black women, right? So you make a pitch, your passion is apparent to anybody, right? If anybody's spending time with with you, they know that you care and they know that some stuff, right? It's not all theory, right? There's practice. But then they may take it to the board they look at your profile and they say, well, we don't give money to,
Or we've reached our quota. I mean, let's just come on now.
yeah,
We've
yeah.
done enough of that. We've invested in that. Haven't we done enough of that already?
Mm. So when you talk about having a smaller pool of people that's more closely aligned to you, I really dig that. I really dig that because now there's one barrier that you already over. Right. Now it's a matter of, as we talk business, as we talk 5, 10 years down the road, is there a match there? And if it can we get there if there's some small differences, right? But it's not you selling why you think this is a good idea or why it's
Right.
necessary or trying to explain necessarily our community and the disparity as far as healthcare, regardless of what type of healthcare, right? Um, I imagine the people that you are aligned with, even before you had these conversations, there's been some research done and they understand some of this stuff. Right now, we can have a conversation. We're already further down the field than we would be with just a regular old,
Yeah.
company that may not know much about me or care about me or care about what I
Or who
care.
I serve, or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a hell of a pivot. I think it makes complete sense because again, now you can concentrate your efforts on the right group and you can have more impactful conversations. Um, and you can, because this is important, you need somebody on occasion to endorse what you're seeing. So you don't start to question yourself, right? Even if you guys don't go in business together for whatever reason,
Right.
they see it.
Yeah.
And then that gives you a little bit more, you know, gas in the tank to take it to
Yeah.
the next person, right? I do think that stuff is important.
No, it's huge. It's
Yeah,
huge. It's huge.
yeah, yeah. Because sometimes you can look around and think, is everybody else crazy or am I crazy? And like statistically
Yeah.
speaking, maybe it's me. Like maybe I don't have it. Maybe I don't have it right. Maybe the idea is off. Maybe and you start
Yeah.
having.
And I mean, like at the end of the day, to that point, I think that I'm 100% in favor of failing fast, because failing fast to me is failing forward, right? Time is finite,
Mm.
right? We don't even know what we're given, but what we are given, we know it's not going to last forever. So I'm not trying to be out here doing this, without funding forever. We did raise $55,000, by the way, which is super exciting. But
Right.
thank you. But it is there's so much more to go, and there's so much more to get behind us. And I know that like once I start getting into those rooms, those intentional rooms, those rooms that I know, then the rest will inevitably come without question.
I cannot wait until we are sitting back reminiscing about these conversations and some of these struggles and I really believe that it's gonna be all well worth it and we'll be able to look back and smile and go, yeah, I needed to take some of those, those hits early because man, we're killing it
Yeah,
now and we're helping a bunch of people. We're helping the helpers
that's
and
it.
we're helping the community as a whole too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're amazing and I know I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
She is a paused psychotherapist, the
Yep.
founder of The Better Spot, Madilynn Beck. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For everyone that's listening or watching, just know that you are all capable. You just need to embrace your own frequency. On behalf of Madilynn, I am Baxter E. And until next time, Peace.
Welcome into his brain, welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk, come be at peace with me.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, please subscribe, share, and also hit that notification button as well. Thank you so much.
Financial literacy to authentic black history, this real rap.